So now that you have the two fuselage sides connected together with the cross members, and you're confident that things are nice and square and true, the next logical step, in my opinion, is to go ahead and put on the floor for the cockpits. It's best to do it now, I think, because obviously the fuselage is upside down, so it's easy to get to, and it will also help to hold everything together nice and firm and keep things from racking and shifting on you. So I would recommend doing the floor as soon as you get the cross members along the entire length of the fuselage. I'm not concerned about the diagonals at this time, but just get the cross members on to hold the sides together, and then move on to the floor. The floor is very, very simple. The dimensions for the floor are on the print as far as how far back it needs to be located, and then it's just a matter of taking the 1/4 inch sheet of plywood and laying it on the fuselage sides and squaring it up to the firewall, or where the firewall will be. And then as you can see in these pictures, I just marked the line with a pencil, basically tracing out the fuselage itself onto the plywood, and then cutting it. It's really that simple. This picture that you see here is the finished floor. It has a very, very slight taper to it toward the cutout end. That circular cutout end is the aft end of the floor. It starts to taper just prior to that, but other than that, it's just a square piece of plywood. So it's pretty straightforward, I think. I don't think anybody will have any problems with that. Here is my cockpit floor. Obviously the fuselage is still upside down, and I've got the floor epoxied in place, and I've got clamps around the edges to hold the edges down firmly, and then I've got the green weights that you see laying on top of the cross members that run across the floor on the inside. And obviously you need to make sure you epoxy all of these members to the floor to get a nice strong structure. Here's an up-close shot of the same deal. Again, you can see the clamps obviously around the perimeter. The green weights run along the top of where the cross members are, just on the other side of the plywood. It's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward stuff, but if you're like me, you like pictures, so I'm just throwing them in here. And then there's another one coming up here. What I want to draw to your attention on this photograph, just aft of the cockpit floor, you'll see those little silver weights, and those strips of plywood, those are also shown and called out on the plans. I went ahead and added them at this time after having the floor in place, just because it was super easy to do with the fuselage still upside down. So those strips of 1/8 inch plywood, I believe, those can be put on now as well. And then when you get those in and everything is epoxied and dried, you can go ahead and flip the fuselage right side up. That's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, here's a picture of my fuselage with the floor in place and with those strips along the sides, on the bottom, the strips in the previous photograph that had the little silver weights on them. Those are in place, and now it's right side up. Yeehaw! This is a shot of my tailpost connections with the longerons. This particular picture here, the tailpost is on the right, and the lower longerons come in across the bottom, and then the pieces of wood just above the lower longerons, those are diagonal pieces that have to get added in after you get the tailpost in place. But you can see how the lower longerons are cut at a taper on the inside where they meet each other, and I had to do the same kind of cut on the top longerons, and like I said in the video clip, I just cut that by hand with a hand saw. And then the diagonals that come into place, I cut those to fit both the angle where they attach to each other, as well as the angles on the ends where it butts up against the tail post itself. And on the opposite side of all this, you can see the piece of plywood there that makes up the gusset. And then this picture coming up here is probably not too useful, but I just wanted to put it in here because you can see where the top longerons come together. Between those two longerons is that 1/8 inch piece of plywood that I had to put in there because I cut them wrong, so I had to put that plywood spacer in there. And then down below that you can see the slit that I had to cut in my tail post to accommodate the type of hinges that I'm going to be using. Again, if you have the other videos, the other section videos, I talk about this kind of hinge installation that I'm doing, my own design installation, and I had to incorporate that in the tail post as well. So there it is. That's the tail post. It's pretty straightforward. Once you get into it, you'll see exactly how it all goes together if you choose to do it this way. Another detail concerning the cockpit floor is this spruce piece that you see here along the forward edge. This is the firewall end of the fuselage, and that piece of spruce that you see here glued on top of the plywood, I added that after I had the floor epoxied in place. And then I came back and I added this piece of spruce on the very front edge afterwards. Now, the metal plate that you see there represents where the lower motor mount is going to be. And rather than notch out this cross member piece after the fact, I just went ahead and used a couple of scrap pieces of steel, the proper thickness for the motor mounts, and laid them in here on each end, and then cut the piece of spruce to fit between them snugly. So there's going to be that gap at each end of this particular piece, so the motor mounts will slip right in place. Another picture of the fuselage so far. It's not too exciting, but at least here you can see, well, you can actually see many things. You can see obviously the bar clamps holding the cross members in place along the top. You can see that the floor has been epoxied in place, and you can see that the tail post is not put on still. And of course you get the general shape of the fuselage in this picture as well.
Hey everybody, just wanted to say real quick again, thanks for checking out my YouTube videos, and just a couple of real quick tidbits before you leave. If you'd be so kind as to check out my GoFundMe page, the link is down in the description of these videos. For those of you who find it in your heart to donate for this new cause of mine, I've got another project going on. And there's some really cool things I'd like to do with this aircraft, and again, that's all explained in my GoFundMe. But if you find moved enough to go do that and donate, I've got this horizontal stabilizer skin, and donors will get their name put on this skin, and ultimately when this gets filled and the aircraft gets finished, this is going to be hung up on the wall of honor in my hangar, just a little bit of recognition for those donors who helped make the project a reality. Another thing too is, I'm sure you've noticed that even this video that I'm making right now is of the same or worse quality than the video that you just watched, and that's because, believe it or not, this camera is the exact same camera that I filmed the original hint videos with. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not really sure why, but I know the video quality lacks, but hopefully the information within is worth something. And the other thing that I wanted to mention real quick is, again, these are little snippets from my hint video DVDs, so a lot of these individual clips just kind of come to an abrupt end. That's just the way it is when I'm trying to rip these DVDs apart and re-edit them into small little segments, and they just kind of end weird at times. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say. And again, thanks, and I hope you'll come back, check out my channel, and see if there are any new videos and updates. All right, I'll talk to you then. See you.